Oh, pardon. Oh, eating some pasta. Those Italians, smart people. Man, brain food. Boom, hit me. Some was brought up by Hayek. I'm actually definitely going to have to read sections of some of these essays because they're just too good. I got to do it. Got to have it on my channel for the sake of history. Um, Something that's hit me. There's a video I'm uploading from my phone, so it'll take a while. Um, about the left, and this is something that Arini and Matt Forney were talking about. I've been rolling over their discussion of the alternative right, and this kind of thing that went on between, I guess, Varg, the Tullian, and the glorious one. Um, the mythos of a people, the norms of their society, how to write the language. Historically, as Hayek was putting it, is how you are brought into the cultus. This is actually what messes with people about Christianity. Christianity is its own separate cultus. It was separate of Rome, in a sense. Rome had to pull the power of such a cultus into the state. Now, of course, we could recognize this. We have terminology and a long tradition of evaluating this from outside of the world of religion. From even looking at it from sort of now an understanding we have of the mythos that every group of people had that they would then introduce their people to. And you want to pass that on. This is actually a key, one of the big differences. This came up in when I was looking into Thomas Aquinas' understanding of people, the way the Christians viewed the world. You have children not only because it's just kind of quite natural to reproduce, but that it's also, there's a metaphysical good. They had to attach the metaphysical good. The metaphysical good they attached to it was that it's part of the fundamental, not only is it part of the fundamental law, the right pillar, the fundamental law of that governs humans. They will bear Eve. You will bear children in pain from this point on. Adam will eat from the sweat of his brow. So work, labor will be required. You will have to labor to eat, and to sustain yourself, you will have to labor, and childbirth, you will have desire for your husband, but the childbirth, bearing children will be painful. So your creative process, your natural state will cause you to have pain. Your natural state will cause you to suffer and have to toil. That is the natural state now, that you know the difference between good and evil. That's how the story really kind of has to get broken down. Once you know once at some stage, the thing that is the created being understood the difference between being close and being far from God, because that's what good and evil are in that set of definitions. They're actually point and then another point. So the high point and the low point. So there's actually space in between them. So therefore you can have creation, have choice within it. And then choices set order. Because once you make one choice, you limit the number of infinite choices you can make. You create conditions. That is why and that comes out of the four letters of the holy name. Once you put the pen down, you must start writing. What are you going to write? What letters do you have to work with? To be brought into the cult of a civilization. I like Dugan's approach to this, a civilization. To be introduced to its mythos, whether this is Ifa and Obatala and Pachango and Yemaya, or if this is Yakov and Esau, or if it's Arthur or Athelstan, Dur or Baba Yaga. whatever it is, that to be brought into that's what makes you a part of the people. Something that has actually hit me about the left is they are, and this is actually, I think, why this is fracturing a generation, and this will, and that we can never recover. This hit me, and I'm like, oh fuck, holy crap! I really didn't see this, and this is something that comes out of Freemasonry. When you join Freemasonry, it is extraordinarily complicated. All these stories then have code words and gestures and hand signals that go with it. And it's just elaborate ritual that goes with the myth of this cultus. This is why the Catholic Church opposed it so much, is that it attempted to take what was fundamentally the way that the cultus of Catholicism worked, and invent something almost parallel or an imitation of it. I think a lot of this came out of the need for it, out of Protestant culture in the British Isles and Germany specifically, and that the French are the ones who really took delight in perverting the rights of the Catholic Church and extending the rights of the Scottish tradition of Freemasonry and the British tradition of Freemasonry into what we now have as the Scottish Rite, or the was it Ritual Écossais, and that was introduced from the French, and now those two bodies of Freemasonry are broken. The French are just a bunch of commies who all meet up and go, look, we are Freemason. So when you're not in, you're one of the profane, is one of the terms that they use. I have had, this is one of these things, it's rolled around, this reference to that, the profane. And something that has hit me now is the lack of logic, grammar, and rhetoric being some kind of fundamental and standard part of most people's education. Like really not being able to read words out loud. This is actually something I have started to see in working in food service enough, that there are people who, full-grown people, they drive cars, they do things, they can't, they're not confident in their reading. Sometimes there are terms that I can't understand how people don't know that what they're reading, they know that word in English. But it's almost the same word. And I'm like, what? How don't you know it? And I'm like, well, maybe you learned an Asian language in high school. Yeah, apparently you aren't familiar with the Romantic family of languages, But what hit me just now, these people just haven't been catechized in Western civilization. That's fundamentally what it is. These people really, they don't even, and so therefore they would not know even how to approach Western civilization. This was something that hit me when Arini really made me reevaluate my Catholic education. And there was, and then Sister Erica was saying to me, your generation and mine as well, we were very poorly catechized. And this is something Church Militant brought up. And I had to really start thinking about that. What do you really know about Catholicism? Because when I started to kind of relearn the history of Western civilization, I'm like, wait a second. So almost this whole effort in the colonies was actually incredibly difficult. Most people at some point try to garden. Gardening's difficult, isn't it? Think about creating an entire country out of a jungle. And maybe about half the residents, if they survive the influenza that they're going to catch from the mosquitoes that bite you and then bite them, if you survive the malaria and they survive the influenza, will they kill you for just being not in their group, not being in the cultus? Because that is what people do. Most people, throughout most of time, bred out of a group of only about 200 to 400 people at the largest. They actually looked alike. to the point where people in ancient scripture people will know you are from a place, and this isn't a country now. I mean, we couldn't even conceive it. This would be, oh, you're from the next county over. Yeah, you look like that. I could tell you're from the next county over. You wear that stuff that they wear. You look like them. You have that thing that shows that you're dumb, or shows that you'll beat people with rocks, or that you have bad breath, or you're stink mouth, whatever. There's all these weird terms people would use for other, like Amerigo Vespucci. That's not a nice name, Vespucci. You have you have a mannerism like a wasp. Was it because his family would swarm you and stab you? I mean, like, there's a reason he was named this. And people don't get that. That you, why would you have been known as the Baxter? Why would your family have been known as that? Why would you have been known as the Koch, the Cooks? Because of this loss of the understanding of language and the appreciation of it, because of this loss of then sort of the understanding of, oh, no, it's quite obvious when someone can explain to you something rationally, because they could offer evidence. And then on top of it, they could apply the metaphysics of that evidence to then another example. So it could be shown to you, no, you see, this is reflected in this too, because there is a high set of concepts that we're really talking about, greater laws that actually really we're just bound by, that we're really following, that just the way that nature tends to work things out. It's the conditions of time space. I've started to realize, because that's required for logic, to understand that there's constraints on humans within time space. Without that agreement, there is no truth. This statement is false, so therefore mathematics totters. And that's it. And I've started to realize, like, no, this is the ultimate of the profane. This lack of understanding of the seven arts and sciences, this complete lack of appreciating the authority which is thousands of generations of accumulated knowledge, because the Western world loves lots of knowledge. That's why we translate all sorts of odd books. That's why you have British priests talking about an Eastern European version of Christianity that was almost decimated by Islam. This is why you have a mixed race guy from San Francisco owning a well thumbed through and dog-eared version of the Tao Te Ching, translated from the oldest text found in China by a British dude. And then in the back, he goes into how there's words from Proto-Indo-European that still exists, not just in Chinese, but also in Russia, because you could find their cognates in other local languages as you move from China to Russia to this day. This is totally unappreciated, I think, to a great extent by many people on the left, who are just, a lot of these people are just doing they are following nature. They're just getting by every day. They're doing what they got to do. And they haven't been catechized. Many of them don't want to be. They want to be forever illogical, because then they can live in their imagination of the greatness of their ideals. That they don't have to know that they're probably just thinking some shit somebody else had already made up. Or they're dependent upon the authority of somebody like Marx and Engels, where it's like they pretty much got about a handful of things right, and almost everything else they've done has been the bane of the world. And now confronts us with assassination attempts on members of our own government, assaults in the streets, political armed wings, and a massive kind of quiet anti-Semitic movement that's starting that really exists in the left through the BDS, and really people don't really get the whole Black Lives Matter thing. Black Lives Matter, people like that, they don't like Jews. I know people don't really, they'll never find something where, no, but if you ever are sitting down with like black people who only are interested in black people, like they have no interest in anybody else or anything else, really. It's like, and that's why they're all like, we flew the pyramids, we was kangs and shit like that. They are doing what is very natural for most of the rest of the world, like the Ummah. The Ummah does not translate the Tao Te Ching. No, the Ummah does not have Manly P. Hall's secret teachings of all ages. That does not exist within the Ummah. It's not translated into Farsi. These people, if you ever sit and talk with them, they just don't like Jews. They'll never really give you like, oh, well, and some really good long principled thing about, how because they view themselves as a separate people at all times and blah, 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 and in every society. And, they'll never go into something like that, like you would find on alternative right blog spot, No, it's just, they don't like Jews. It's like with the JOOZ kind of style. And I remember growing up in San Francisco, and that moment where somebody says this like hella loud out loud, and I'm like, no, why are you wearing a hat like that? What are you, a Jew? I don't like no Jews. And I'm just sitting there like, that really happened. I think this was when I was still vice president of the Black Students Union in high school. I swear to God, this is why I have, I don't talk about it much. Oh, I learned so much. And so, not being in the club hurts. It's a big part of this. A lot of people who've turned kind of to this new right, a big part of it is they're re-catechizing themselves. They're looking into all these odd books that they've never heard of. They're trying to find like somebody who will drop a little like info on them that they would have just never thought of, and then looking into things that really like to really shatter the box, to shatter it. I mean, like, let me give you an example. It's like one of the things I've really particularly liked is biblical myths that came out of other religions. This was something that this very, very mean black man on YouTube recommended, because he contested that us Negroes don't know nothing about history of the Bible, talking about your Jesus. and it's bits and pieces of it that I've already looked into. Fantastic book. Who is the King of Glory? Who is this King of Glory? Was another one he recommended. Fantastic book. These are things that are old, and I mean, who is this King of Glory is one that was totally like out of print. You get it in the version that they've obviously just stuck a cover onto something that was just printed out, by some small publisher. All of these odd little things that fill you in on the details of people's lives throughout the Western world. The kind of people who established Quebec, the kind of people who then built Montreal, the actual story of people who would have been technically new Spaniards living in the Texas territory, and why they banded with these settlers to repel, I believe it was Santa Anna and his art in this burgeoning Mexican government. And of course people get so mad about this Texas, you took all that land, blah, blah, blah. Well, they never really look into what was the Mexican government like back then. Nobody really wants to talk about that. No one actually really gives a shit about learning about it. And the Cristero War, and they don't want to know. So this is going to be kind of sad at some stage when you realize, like, oh, okay, no, I know people are so fascinated with like the tarot, but they can't think logically, so it's wasted on them. They can't. You have to have the right pillar and the left pillar, and then by using both, you end up in the center. That's the way it ends up working in Western civilization. I am referring again to Kabbalah, because that's so much a part of the Enlightenment in Judeo-Christianity, whether people really like it or not. This idea of the aesthetic and the stenos, the strong and the beautiful, and how people have to balance the pillar of the law and severity and the pillar of beauty and the pillar of mercy, and how those two come together and provide you with they come together, and you then receive providence. You receive Kabbalah. You receive. And so that's all I got. I feel bad for people who they just, the real Crusades history, they'll never watch it. They don't care. The history of Southern French Christianity, and how that's like a key part of the whole concept of mysticism and magic in Western civilization, and the way the long amount of time it took for the northern nations to become Christian, and how they changed Christianity, and how they viewed then the traditions of reason, traditions of what ends up becoming science, and what they develop as reason, to the point where without the Germans and then the French, we wouldn't have that capital R reason in a way. The British had what they had, but it required a lot of help from German and French thinkers to really build that up. And for then us to come to this point where we could think of natural scientific laws, the pillar of severity, and this thing that we've made that's beautiful, that are our mythos. And it has its own laws, and those laws are supposed to make life beautiful, ideally. Give to the poor. Feed those who are hungry. Treat the children well. Be loving to your wife. She suffers. Toil, for you will eat, and you love bread, like I love my pasta. I'm going to get back to it. Take care.